Hey, welcome back to the Amplified Podcast for what is going to be a fascinating episode today. Like I said, we've been getting into the book of Numbers for a while now, and a lot of it is turning into narrative. So we're seeing, in Leviticus, we saw a lot of the priestly side of what was going on, but now we get to kind of see what's happening on with these people groups, happening with the wars, happening with them moving into the land of Canaan for the first time. Some wild stuff is going to happen in these chapters today. And so I'm so glad that you joined us. Of course, I'll be reading out of the Amplified text today. We have Numbers 21 and 22 that we're going to go through today. The last episode, honestly, it was a tough chapter for me. I don't completely understand the red heifer sacrifice. So I was doing my very best to explain it, but if I was to try once again, I would simply say that it's about the Lord cleansing sin from his people, not only for his sake, but for their sake, and that God doesn't want any death or uncleanness around them in the same way that you and I don't. And so we have Jesus in his sacrifice today. They had the sacrifice of bulls and lambs and goats then. This one in particular happened to be a red heifer, and I'm honestly not sure why. Then we saw the death of Miriam. We saw Aaron and Moses. They didn't have faith in God, kind of similar to the Israelites. And they struck the rock twice instead of speaking to it, or at least Moses did. And that is the reason why he doesn't get to go into the promised land. Then we see Aaron. He passes away, but before he does, he gets to pass down the job of the high priest to his son Eleazar. So last episode was a little bit shorter. Today will probably be a little bit longer. We've got some amazing stuff we're going to cover today. And so you can read it in the Amplified text. I wish Alabaster Bibles had Numbers out. I'm sure they'll have all 66 books soon. But if you are looking for a new way to read the Bible, I highly recommend picking up Alabaster Bibles. They're amazing. And so you can find the link for that in the bio. But as for me, we're going to be going through the Amplified text today. And y'all don't know this, but it is hot in this sanctuary. It's hot in here. It's got to be like 82 degrees up in this sanctuary, because I wait until there's enough light in this room. But also, we don't keep the air conditioning running in the whole building all the time. That'd be crazy. But all that to say, it's hot in here. So we're going to have fun. Okay, so the people are moving out of, they're going to call it the South Country. I want to show you just a quick map real quick. They're moving out of the South Country, meaning that the area south of Israel, I'm sure I find the right one. The area south of Israel that they would have come out of leaving Egypt is where they are at the moment. And so if you're watching, you can see this map, but if you're just listening, kind of how the tail end of Israel meets the top right corner of Egypt where the Nile comes out. Well, they've gone a fair bit inland, and now they're south of the Dead Sea, and they are moving north together. And so today we're going to see them talk about this city called Arad. My map here doesn't have the word Arad written on it, but that's because it's kind of a hard city to find, and was destroyed. So we're going to see that in just a second, but I'll point you to it. So it would be, probably straight south from Bethlehem, in line with kind of like the last little part of the Dead Sea. That's where they would be. And so they're going to be traveling into that today. And I just wanted to show you that on the map real quick. So let's dive into the word. Here's what it says. When the Canaanite king, sorry, I totally butchered the very first verse. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, so that's the south country, just south of Israel, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Athiram, this is the route traveled by the spies sent by Moses, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. So Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed hand over these people to me, I will utterly destroy their cities. Which is odd. Why would you make a vow to make a deal for something that God already told you to do? It's like It's like if your parents told you to clean your room and you said, okay, I'll clean my room if you give me back my iPod that you took. And it's like, I already told you to clean your room. It just seems backwards. It's like you've already been told to do this. And so either way, they said, Lord, if you give back our people, we'll destroy all these cities, which is what God wanted them to do in the first place. The Lord heard the voice of Israel and handed over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them in their cities. So the name of the place was called Hormah, which means to dedicate to destruction. They set out from Mount Hor by the way of the branch of the Red Sea called the Gulf of Aqaba to go around the land of Edom, and the people became impatient because of the challenges of the journey. They were going to go through Edom. We saw in the last chapter that the king of Edom did not like that, and so now they have to go around. And the Edom will get their just desserts for that later on. So the people, once again, spoke against Moses and God, saying, why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there's no bread, there's no water, and we loathe this miserable food. So the food that God is literally giving them, bread from heaven. I understand that you can get tired of eating something every day for 40 years, but it is bread from heaven. God has given them water. He has carried them through this whole wilderness, and yet they are still going, why did you bring us out here to die? Granted, a lot of them are going to die in the wilderness because they didn't trust the Lord that they could take Canaan, but their offspring will not die. They're the ones that are going to go in. So once again, they're complaining against the Lord, and we see 10 times in Scripture, 10 times we see the people complaining. So 10 complaints. Here's what it says in verse 6. The Lord sent fiery burning serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many Israelites died. Now, these serpents, I don't have any pictures of it because I think they're extinct, but we think that they would have been like little dragons, like kind of like how some snakes, the back of their heads kind of flare out. It's possible that these would have been snakes that would have been native to this area that actually had wings to fly around short distances, kind of like how there are flying fish that jump out of the water. This would have been the same sort of thing. They fly short distances, but nonetheless, they are venomous. And so the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord so that he will remove the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And honestly, I don't even think so much that the Amplified text here says that the Lord sent fiery serpents among them. It also could have been that the Lord was preventing those snakes from coming into the camp for a long time. And after they complained against him, we hate the food. There's no water here. I can't believe you brought us out into the wilderness to die. They've said this a dozen times before nearly. God said, you know what? If you guys hate me that much, then maybe I'll just lift my hand of protection off for a minute. And all these serpents come in. I think you can read it both ways. Then the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent of bronze, set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten will live when he looks at it. So Moses made a serpent of bronze and put it on the pole. And it happened that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked to the bronze serpent, he lived. Now the sons of Israel moved out and camped at Oboth. They journeyed on from Oboth and camped at Abiram in the wilderness facing Moab toward the sunrise. From there, they set out and camped in the Wadi Zered. From there, they journeyed on and camped to the other side of the river Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites. For the Arnon River is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. So Moab would have been on the east side of the Jordan. Pretty sure Moab would have been on the east side of the Jordan. On the west side would have been more of the Ammonite territory, or Amorite territory. But the Bible has a way of moving through incredible stories very quickly, and I want to stop here and talk about this for a moment. We studied this a lot in Bible college and went over it several times because it almost seems like God is encouraging idolatry here. Make for yourself a bronze idol that the people can look at, and when they look at it, they'll be healed. But this was not so much an idol as it was. The people turned it into an idol later on. But this was meant to be a foreshadow to who Christ would be later on. Again, this messed me up because I'm thinking, why would God symbolize Christ as a serpent? That's the exact opposite of what he is. The serpent is the serpent in the garden, and he's the enemy. So why would the enemy be raised up like this? From what I understand, it's like this. When Jesus died on the cross, all of the punishment for the sins of humanity, everything that we have done wrong, everything that we have messed up, everything that we transgressed against the Lord, that we got wrong, all the punishment, all the sin of the world was laid upon Jesus. All the shame, all the hatred, all of the wrath and the guilt was placed upon him. And he died that death in our place so that we don't have to die that death. That's the whole story of the gospel. That's what's brilliant. But in that moment, when all of the sin of the world was placed upon him, and the Father looks away from his Son, Jesus becomes the embodiment of sin, and therefore sin dies in that moment. The authority of sin, the authority of guilt, and the punishment, it all finished with him. Now, again, I'm not preaching universalism either, that every single person who lives and walks the earth gets to go to heaven because of Jesus. It is only when you choose Jesus that his punishment, that the punishment he took applies to you. So, this serpent being raised up on a pole in the wilderness thousands of years before is a type, a foreshadow of what was to come, that Jesus, taking on all the sin of the world, would be raised up on a cross. And if you and I look to Jesus, if we allow him to take our punishment, if we look to him for healing, then it is healing that he gives. And so that's the idea there. That's the idea there. Here's what it says. They're talking about where they journeyed, verse 14. And that is why it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, another lost book that we don't have access to, Waheb in Suphah, in the wadis of Arnon River, and the slope of the wadis that stretches from toward the site of Ar and leans toward the border of Moab. I'm going to level with you. I have no idea what that means. I know that some of those are cities, Arnon, Moab, Ar. I don't know if that's poetry. I don't know if that is just a description of what they were doing. I don't even know what some of those words mean. So there's always more to discover, I guess. Verse 16. From there the Israelites went on to Beer, that is the well where the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it. The well which the leaders dug, which the nobles of the people hollowed out with the scepters, with their staffs. That's the song. And from the wilderness, Israel journeyed to Mattanah, from Mattanah to Nahiliel, from Nahiliel to Bamoth, from Bamoth to the valley that is the field of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looks down on the wasteland. So the Bible is explaining the different movements of the people as they're going through. Again, this is a historical text that we're looking at. Verse 21. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, the king of the Amorites. Sihon was a giant. So God told them that they would, or the people knew that they would encounter giants in the land. But we also know that God is bigger than any of the giants. He's bigger than Sihon. And we're going to see another one here in just a second. And they are both giants. Here's what it says. Let me pass through your land. We will not turn away from the road into the field or to the vineyard. We will not drink the water of the wells. We will go by the king's highway until we've crossed your border. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his border. Instead, Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness and came to Jahaz, and he fought Israel there. Now, again, they're kind of doing him the courtesy of letting him know, but by him being upset about it and then immediately going out to war, it's a little bit like, hey, I said something nice to you and you threw the first punch, so now I have every right to throw a punch back. I think that's a little bit of the way it works in this moment. Then Israel struck the king of the Amorites with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the Ammonites, for the boundary of the Ammonites was strong. Israel took all these cities and settled in all the cities of the Amorites and Heshbon and in all its towns. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand as far as the Arnon. That is why those who use the proverb say, "Come to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and established. For fire has gone out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar and Moab. And the lords of the heights of the Arnon, woe, judgment is coming to you, Moab. You are destroyed, O people of Chemosh." So think about it like this. Sihon is the king of the Ammonites. He takes over Moab so that when Israel comes in and Israel defeats the Ammonites, they get the territory of the Ammonites and Moab in one fell swoop. Moab has given his sons as fugitives, that is, survivors of battle, and his daughters into captivity. To Sihon, the king of the Amorites, we have shot them down with arrows. Heshbon is destroyed as far as Dibon, and we have laid them waste as far as Nophah, which reaches to Medeba. Honestly, guys, I did study a lot of these cities, and some of them are major, and some of them we only see them once in scripture, and it's in an occasion like this. But again, these would have been small villages, small cities, ancient areas that were either destroyed or burned or later were inhabited by the Israelites, and probably their names were changed then. But understand this, that the people of Israel are beginning to move into the land of Canaan, God's country, and they're going to wipe out all the riffraff that's there. And again, I say riffraff as a euphemism because they were involved in some wild stuff. So here's what it says. Verse 31, that was the end of the proverb. They had some odd proverbs back then, I guess. Thus Israel settled in the land of the Amorites. Now Moses sent men to spy out Jazer, and they overthrew its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them. Og is another giant in the land. He and all his people to battle at Endri. But the Lord said, "Do not fear him." The Lord said to Moses, "For I have handed over him and all his people and his land to you. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon." So the sons of Israel killed Og and his sons and all his people until there was no survivor left to him, and they took possession of the land. Now, the Bible's going to tell us here soon that Og was one of the descendants of the Rephaim. This is the giant clans that were direct descendants of the angels. The angels that transgressed against the Lord, they came down and mated with the women. We talked about this all the way back in Numbers 6. But God is wanting to purge all of the evil from the land, which is why he's very adamant that they need to remove all the peoples. Otherwise, the sin of those peoples is going to grow like sourdough into all of the people of Israel. And we're going to find out in not too long how well that goes for the people of Israel because they don't do what God says. So let's dive into chapter 22. Chapter 22 is phenomenal, and we're actually going to end it on, a cliffhanger. We get to see this story. This is a bit of a lengthy story that's kind of happening outside of the Israelites. So we have the Israelites that are kind of moving into Israel. Let's see if I can draw Israel here. Israel is like this. We have the people, they're crossing over the Dead Sea and over the Galilee from Moab into the territory of the Amorites. This is where, or the Ammonites, which is where they kill Sihon. This is where they kill Og, the king of Bashan. And they're kind of taking over this southern area first as well. But while this is happening, we have people on the other side of Moab, probably up in these mountain ranges right here. We have other people that do not want the best for Israel. Of course, they typically don't. They don't want Israel to do well. They want Israel to be wiped out because Israel's going to start to mess up their good time coming through here. And so the king of Moab is going to try to curse the people of Israel. So think about it. If you're watching a movie, you've been watching the main plot line for a little while, and then all of a sudden the screen comes up and it says, "Meanwhile, far away." And it cuts to a whole different group of people. And that's what we get to see right now. This is meanwhile. So here's what it says, chapter 22. The Israelites journeyed and camped in the plains of Moab and camped on the east side of the Jordan River across from Jericho. So I guess they're about right here. They are coming down off the slopes of Moab. They're in the plains right there, but they haven't crossed over the Jordan River yet. So let me erase this for us. And Balak, the king of Moab, said, the son of Zippor saw that Israel had... What, guys, I'm butchering this verse. I'm so sorry. And Balak, the king of Moab, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. So this is going to get a little confusing here because we have two main characters, one named Balak, one named Balaam. Balak is the king. I just wrote a letter K instead of the letter B. Balak is the king. So you can think his name ends with a K. So does, and the word king starts with a K. So Balak is the king. And in just a moment, we're going to be introduced to Balaam. And he is the, let's call him the wizard. He's the wizard. So we have Balak and we have Balaam, two different guys. So Moab was terrified because of the people, for they were numerous. Moab was overcome with fear because of the sons of Israel. And it's almost as if the Lord is saying, I will strike fear into the hearts of your enemies before they even meet you on the battlefield. They'll be scared of you. And God is so good that he always holds up his end of the deal, even though most of the time the people of God do not hold up their end of the deal in these stories. So as we're going through, we get to see God's faithfulness come through because before they ever meet any of these people on the battlefield, they're already scared of them. So here's what it says. Verse 4, Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this horde, talking about Israel, will lick up all that is around us, just as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time. So he sent messengers to Balaam, a famous prophet / diviner, the son of Beor at Pethor, which is by the Euphrates River, in the land of the descendants of his people, to call for him, saying, there's a people who have come out of Egypt. Behold, they cover the surface of the land, and they're living opposite me. So they're living across from me. Now please come and curse these people for me, for they are too powerful for me. Perhaps I will be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know your reputation, that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So the elders of Moab and Midian departed with fees for divination. So they're paying him to curse Israel, foretelling in hand. And when they came to Balaam and told them the words of Balak, Balaam said to them, spend the night here, and I will bring word back to you as the Lord may speak to me. So the leaders of Moab stayed with Balaam that night. Now, Balaam is not a good guy. He's not a good guy at all. He doesn't worship Yahweh. He simply recognizes that Yahweh is a God. That's why I think it's the text that we have here that translates it as the Lord. But suffice it to say, this is a man who worships many gods. He's saying, okay, that's their God. I'll find out what he has to say about them tonight. So God came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? Balaam said to God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent word to me. Hear this, the people who come out of Egypt, cover the surface of the land. Come now and curse them for me. Perhaps I'll be able to fight against them and drive them out. So this is Balaam having a conversation with God. God said to Balaam, do not go with them. You shall not curse the people of Israel, for they are blessed. So even though the people of Israel are constantly complaining, constantly transgressing the covenant, constantly going after other things, constantly cursing Moses and Aaron, God is still defending them to his enemies far away. Balaam got up in the morning and said to the leaders of Balak, go back to your own land of Moab, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. The leaders of Moab arose and went to Balak, the king, and said, Balaam, the prophet, has refused to come with us. Then Balak the king again sent leaders more numerous and men who were more distinguished than the first ones. They came to Balaam the diviner and said to him, "Thus says Balak the son of Zippor the king, I beg you, let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will give you a very great honor, and I will do whatever you tell me. So please come and curse these people of Israel for me." Balaam answered the servants of Balak, "Even if Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything either small or great contrary to the command of the Lord my God." Again, I do not think he is a good man at all. He's simply recognizing that this God has come and spoken to him. Our God, the God, has spoken to him and told him that he can't do it. So if you are, it's like if you had, let's say you have a big excavator that digs large amounts of earth. If that is broken, it doesn't matter how much somebody pays you to come and do the job that day. It still doesn't change the fact that what you have is broken. You can't get the job done. So if God has already blessed them and they are not to be cursed, then he can't do it in the first place. Now, please, you also stay here tonight, and I will find out what else the Lord will say to me. God came to Balaam at night and said to him, "If the men have come to call you, get up and go with them, but you shall still only do what I tell you." So God is kind of like, I don't think so much that he's giving in here, but the Lord is smart enough to know that he's going to use this as a positive experience for the Israelites. I want to read what the Amplified text says here. It says this. When it's talking about him saying, "The Lord my God," this is not a confession of faith on Balaam's part, but a bold and false claim to be a medium of Israel's God. Balaam was motivated by greed, not a desire to please the Lord. Here's what it says. "So Balaam got up in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the leaders of Moab. But God's anger was kindled because he was going, and the angel of the Lord took stand in the way as an adversary against him." Now, God just told him to get up and go, but now the Lord is angry for him getting up and going. Seems like a dichotomy here, so let's look what the Amplified text says. God had given Balaam permission to go after he asked the second time, yet God was angry. This is a little puzzling, but if we remember that God is not whimsical, it makes sense. God had already told Balaam no, and when Balak's leaders came to him again, Balaam came to God saying, in essence, "But now there's a lot of money and power available, so let me run this by you again." He was treating the Lord as if he were any little demon god who was appealed by money and divination rituals. Balaam did not comprehend that he was dealing with the real, powerful, awesome, and almighty God until he encountered the angel with his drawn sword. God had a plan, and he was going to use Balaam to sabotage Balak's plans in a way that would definitely communicate to Balak exactly who the Israelites' God was and what his plan was for his people. But Balaam needed to understand that it was the Lord who was in charge and not Balaam and his divination methods. So the Lord is upset that he is going against his people, but he's still going to turn it around for good. Here's what it says, verse 22. "Now he was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way and his drawn sword in his hand, the donkey turned off the path and went into the field. But Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back toward the path." So in this moment, somehow the donkey is seeing into the spirit realm what Balaam, the diviner, cannot see. "But the angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path at the vineyards with the stone wall on this side and a stone wall on that side. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pressed herself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against it, and he struck her again." So again, this donkey is trying to avoid this angel of the Lord that's standing in the way. When the angel of the Lord, verse 26. "The angel of the Lord went further a third time and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw that the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, so Balaam was angry, and he struck the donkey a third time with his staff." Verse 28. "The Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, 'What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?' Then Balaam said to his donkey, because you've made a mockery of me. If there had been a sword in my hand, I would have killed you by now. The donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey on which you have ridden all of your life until this day? Have I ever been accustomed to do so to you? And he said, no. Then the angel of the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed his head down and lay himself face down. So, a wild story. The Lord himself opened up the mouth of this donkey and gave it, perhaps this animal already had a conscience to speak. Perhaps the Lord is communicating through this donkey. Perhaps the Lord literally just made it so that the donkey could speak. I think it's possible. This is just the Bible according to Jac. I think it's possible that the animals spoke to Adam and Eve in the garden. That's total speculation. But again, they were in glorified bodies. This is in the perfect place, in the perfect world. Perhaps it was possible. The most puzzling thing here is, why did Balaam immediately respond to his donkey as if it was a normal thing? I don't know. Maybe in some of his rituals, he'd spoken to the spirits of animals. I don't even know I don't know if animals have spirits. I don't think they do. I don't know. It's very odd. But either way, the Lord himself is standing in the way of Balaam, and the Lord can do whatever the Lord wants to do. Here's what it says. The angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you, because your behavior was obstinate and contrary to me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away from me, I would have certainly killed you by now and let her live. So it's interesting that God is saying the same thing that he said to his donkey, that in the same way your donkey is as defenseless to you with a sword in your hand, so are you defenseless against me with a sword in my hands. Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the way against me. But now, if my going displeases you, I will turn back. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with them, but you shall speak only what I tell you. So Balaam went along with the elders, with the leaders of Balak the king. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the border at the Arnon River at the farthest end of the border. Balak the king said to Balaam the diviner, did I not urgently send word to you to call to you? Why did you not come to me immediately? Am I really unable to honor you, to pay you well? Again, this is all very transactional for the king. He only sees this as something to buy, this blessing or this curse against the people of Israel. But that's not the way God operates. He's not impressed by money, power, fame, influence. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And as defenseless as a donkey is to a man with a sword, so are all people against the Lord with a sword in his hands. So Balaam said to Balak, indeed, I've come to you now, but am I able to say anything at all? The word that God puts in my mouth, that I shall speak. So he's letting him know front and center, I'm only going to say what God tells me to say. Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzoth. Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep and sent some to Balaam and to the leaders who were with him. Then it came about in the morning that Balak took Balaam, so the king took the prophets and brought him up to the high places of Baal. From there he saw a portion of the Israelites. And we are going to end on a cliffhanger today. So you'll have to come back next week to see what happens. Of course, you can always read your own Bible and read ahead, or you can find out what happens here with us. But a wild story nonetheless. I think most of all, it communicates that God is above it all, and he's not impressed by our power, our authority, our money. God is going to accomplish his purpose, and he's going to operate in grace at every single turn. So if you're interested to see what happens with the people of God and Balaam and Balak, tune in next week for another episode of the Amplified Podcast. But until then, we'll see you around. Bye-bye.